Our job, as a civilised first world country with big border force and police force and intelligence services and top-thinking bods and boffins in Parliament and the civil service, allegedly, our job is to stop all of that. It's to meet it head on and stop all of that. The French's job is to do the same thing. I'm hearing stories today that Germany are getting a little tougher on immigration. Remember, this was the great under Merkel. The gates are open. 1 million Syrians are welcome to our shores. That's beginning to stop. They're not happy with the Italians on this point. But the idea that we're not acknowledging this fact, and no politician is acknowledging it. Rishi Sunak's not really... You know, I hear Suella Braverman once in a while reference the economic component to this story, but very rarely. And Keir Starmer, because he's not acknowledging that, he's choosing to believe that every single person in one of those boats is destitute and vulnerable and all the rest of it. There will be some. Everyone knows that. If there are kids, if there are babies, yes, of course we help those people. But I don't think that's the bigger story here. So by trying to tackle it from the wrong end of the telescope, what he's going to do, exactly as Christine says there, is to simply invite more people here, I would suggest. That's what's likely to happen. He's vowed that a Labour government would work more closely with the EU in tackling illegal migration. That in itself is another issue about his relationship with the EU. Conservatives claims the quid pro quo of such a deal would see Britain taking in asylum seekers from other EU countries, including those who cross the Mediterranean into Italy or Greece. The Labour leader's visit to the headquarters of Europol, the EU's law enforcement agency, is a sign of his plan to build a closer post-Brexit relationship with Europe, including tackling cross-channel migration. But will any of this work? I'm not so sure. Henry Bolton, international border control expert, is with us. Afternoon to you, Henry. He's talking tough on immigration, sort of. Will it work?
Afternoon, Ian. I don't think he is talking tough, actually. And no, it won't work. Look, there's two things here. Well, firstly, the reality of this is that we would have to take about 13%, under his scheme, 13% of the asylum seekers, or the people who claim asylum, in the European Union. Now, that could take us to about 180,000 a year. What he will succeed in doing is reducing the number of small boat crossings of the Channel. So he will, because in that 180,000 will be the 40+ thousand who would otherwise come across on boats. There may still be some people who come across on boats, those who aren't selected to come here, but essentially we're talking about 180,000 instead of, through various means, including the Channel crossings, probably in the region of 57,000, 60,000 who come over to claim asylum at the moment. Now, does he understand that, yes or no? I think he does. In which case he is lying to the British people. He is manipulating things. And I think he's going after securing the vote of the people who say the way to solve the small boat crossings is to open safe routes. And he'll tick both those boxes. What he won't do, what he will not do in this way, is reduce the overall number of asylum claimants who end up in the UK.
So it's going to increase, right? It had by dint of his own maths, if you like, it's going to increase.
Correct. And the other thing to say, in your introduction there, you mentioned the people crossing the Mediterranean. We'd have to take our proportion of them. Now, I don't know yesterday's figures for Greece, but the weather in the Mediterranean for the last few days has been extremely good and conducive to sailing conditions for the people crossing the Mediterranean. 7,000 arrived on the island of Lampedusa in Italy yesterday. 7,000. Now, on those figures, we'd be taking around about, heading for 800 of just those people alone on our proportion that under Keir Starmer's plan. So you can see that the problem does not go away. And indeed, that 7,000 is twice the figure of this time last year. And what we're seeing is an increasing migration trend through Africa, across the Mediterranean to the southern shores of the European Union. And a proportion of those come on to us. We're seeing an increase, and governments, including the European Union governments, must get ahead of this game. Now, from outside the European Union, I would argue that the UK could take the lead in leading an international effort to get ahead of it. Problem is, we've not got the will, we've not got the determination or the leadership to even do it on our own borders, let alone lead others in doing it on theirs.
You might. I mean, you said it at the beginning. Keir Starmer does understand this. He can't not know this. And what?
Well, if he doesn't know it, Ian, he's so incompetent
exactly.
that he shouldn't be in government.
It would.
And if
it would
he
be.
Does know it, he's so dishonest that he shouldn't be in government.
Yeah, that's a very good way to look at it. One assumes he will be challenged on this. This would be the first question any interviewer will put to him. Hang on a second.
Well, I hope so.
Yes, you might reduce boat crossings because a percentage of those people will then put themselves through legitimate routes, if that's the right way to look at it. But in doing so, you will increase the number. I mean, that's it, isn't it? That's the question. And the answer to that is, the only answer is yes, it will increase.
It will. And Ian, I don't think he cares about that. I don't think the Labour Party cares about that. If he, as the leader of the Labour Party, truly cared about that, he would have said something about Sadiq Khan's real priority of getting more immigrants into London, for example. Now, Sadiq Khan is probably, second to Keir Starmer, possibly the most influential Labour politician in terms of power at the moment, possibly the most powerful, because he's actually in office. But nothing is being said about that. The Labour Party, as a whole, supports a rise in net immigration. They're universalists. They see us all as the same. If they could, I think they would dismantle borders. They would like to see everybody treated on an equal basis around the world. That's highly naive. And, none of his plans deal with the cocaine and heroin and firearms trade coming in through the country either, which is also linked to illegal immigration.